At 2 a.m., a billion-dollar mistake led to an incredible moment, a heartwarming plea for him to STA. Jake Collins leaned against his beat-up truck, fatigue wrapping around him like an old quilt. After a long night delivering hospital supplies in Maplewood, tendrils of hope wrestled with clouds of exhaustion. With his 2 kids at home, waiting for him, and his ailing mother on his mind, Jake felt the familiar rush, the kind of determination that ignited his soul. He paused for a moment, breathing in the crisp, cool air. Life was tough, but Jake believed in the American dream. He was a carpenter by trade and heart, working late into the night to support his family and care for his mother. But his heart ached when he thought about the struggles of the town neighbors scraping by, some barely getting through 2 jobs to keep food on their tables. Suddenly, the serene early morning was shattered by a rush of chaos. The local radio buzzed, nearly crackling with excitement as they mistakenly announced his name. Jake Collins, winner of the billion-dollar lottery. The words hung in the air, a surreal punch to his gut. Overnight, he went from an unseen worker bee to Maplewood celebrity. Cars honked as they swarmed his driveway, reporters crowded around, cameras flashing like fireflies. Confetti filled the air, and words of congratulations reverberated through the streets. Jake's heart raced, but with each cheer, a deeper unease settled in his chest. As he navigated the storm of admiration, it became even more clear in his mind. What about the folks who bled sweat and tears for their daily bread? He couldn't just think about himself, or his kids. This was a chance to lift everyone up. But whenever he entertained this notion of community, shadows of his estranged father crept in. The very man who had birthed the tough work ethic in him now stood as an anchor, reminding him of their turbulent past. They had a history built on sacrifice, but would it serve him, or would it drag him back into despair? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as he was ready to announce a reinvigorating plan for Maplewood, envisioning new parks, new resources for families, a rejuvenation of the communal spirit, a scandal erupted. Reports circulated, unraveling in real time on social media, confirming that the win had been an orchestrated ruse, a mistake wrapped in layers of bureaucratic incompetence. Public sentiment turned on him like a wildfire. No longer a hero, but a puppet of the town's dashed hopes, Jake stood exposed. Alone in the middle of a storm he never asked for, disappointment dripped from the faces that filled the town hall. The air was thick with a palpable mixture of shock and betrayal. Jake felt unmoored, a whisper of doubt fluttering in the back of his mind. After all the dreams spun in the air, could he still find a way to prove his worth? With tears stinging his eyes, he raised his voice, "I may not have the money, but let's build something real together." As he spoke, the room thickened with anticipation, his future now painted not in dollar signs but in shared ambitions. Could he turn this broken dream into something bigger, something worth the scars? The murmurs around him began to soften, resonating like a heartbeat waiting for life. The battle within him surged. Would they embrace him again, or watch as he faltered? And why did that call to action linger, urging him to rise as he had always done? Jake's voice hung in the air, thick with gravity. He looked around the room, meeting the gazes of neighbors he had known since childhood. Their faces mirrored a cocktail of disappointment and uncertainty. He could see flickers of something else too: curiosity. Would they really rally around him, or was he just chasing shadows? Together, he emphasized, the word resonating like a drumbeat. As he spoke, he envisioned a community coming together. They had been through so much: floods, job losses, economic strife. A vision began to take shape in his mind: a community garden, new playgrounds for the kids, resources to help families in need. But could he transform just a dream into something tangible? Let us make Maplewood a place we can be proud of," he declared, his voice rising above the hushed murmurs. He stepped forward, heart racing. "I don't have money, but we have each other. And that counts for more than a lottery win, doesn't it?" A few heads nodded, but doubt lingered like a shadow. An elderly woman, Mrs. Brenner, sat near the front, her face a wellspring of compassion. "Jake," she said, her voice quivering, "we've all had dreams. We've tried to rebuild so many times, but nothing lasts. How do we know this time will be different?" The room held its breath, waiting. Would he have the answer? The weight of the town's history pressed on him. A moment passed, and Jake sensed the gravity of his reply was crucial. "Perhaps it starts with trust and transparency," he suggested, feeling every word tumble out from a place deep within. "Let us craft our plans in the open. Let us keep each other accountable. I may be dreaming big, but I want to hear your ideas too. Your dreams matter." Whispers erupted around the room, the tension palpable. People leaned closer, hungry for connection. Jake took a deep breath, the pulse of possibility racing through him. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a battered notebook, his trusted companion during countless midnight shifts at the job site. "Let us write it down. Who's with me?" One by one, hesitant hands began to rise, then more confidently, fists pumping in the air. Jake's heart swelled as he watched neighbors joining in, each step drawing them closer together. Ideas and projects started flowing, adopting a local park, starting a food drive, run events to raise funds for those in need. Excitement began igniting hope like flames catching dry kindling. Yet, just as the energy soared, a chilling thought sneaked into the cracks of his optimism. What if he couldn't carry this through? Jake swallowed hard, battling the knot in his stomach. Doubt, once muted, flared again, whispering fears. What if he let them down again? The community's faith seemed fragile. His thoughts drifted to his father, the relentless voice of criticism that had shaped him but also sowed a seed of fear. Jake shoved those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the voices around him, each growing more spirited. He tapped the pen against the pages, feeling the rhythm of their dreams burst forth. Whatever the wind had sparked, it opened doors. But would it be enough to sustain the momentum, to mend years of hardship? As excitement filled the hall, Jake stepped back, scanning the faces around him. In their eyes, he saw something brewing, a flicker of hope mixing with vulnerability. And now, he felt it too this time, they weren't just looking for a savior, they were cultivating a change together. "Let us meet again next week, share ideas, and build a plan," he said, more to himself than anyone. The murmurs surged in agreement, but a small voice in his head asked, could he really lead them? That evening, after everyone left, Jake stood alone in the empty town hall, the echoes of hope still alive. Would Maplewood's revival rest on his shoulders? He glanced at the notebook, feeling the pulse of possibility in his hands. But the question gnawed at him, was he strong enough to bear the weight of their shared dreams? And just as he contemplated the way forward, a knock rattled the door behind him. Jake spun around to find a figure framed in the hallway light. It was Lucy, the town's mayor, and she looked more serious than he'd ever seen her. "Jake, we need to talk. There is something you should know about the lottery, something that could change everything." Jake's heart raced, a mixture of fear and intrigue flooding his senses. What now? What had he gotten himself into? Jake wiped his clammy hands on his jeans, feeling his pulse quicken as Lucy stepped into the light. It felt like the air had thickened, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily between them. The town hall, which had just thrummed with hope, seemed suddenly quiet, as if waiting for a bomb to drop. "Are you okay?" Lucy asked softly, her brow furrowing as she took a few steps closer. "Yeah, just, a lot to process, you know." Jake managed, though his voice didn't quite convey the calm he aimed for. "What do you mean about the lottery?" Lucy took a deep breath, her resolve flickering for an instant. "I think you should see this." She reached into her bag and pulled out a sheaf of papers. It's about the winning ticket. Someone in Maplewood bought it. Jake's heart dropped. He'd heard about the massive jackpot that had taken on a life of its own. People had already started dreaming big, whispering things not yet said about how it could change lives. Who won? Do you know? That's just it, Lucy replied, her eyes narrowing as she studied him with a mix of urgency and caution. It's not someone you'd expect. It's your friend, Dustin. Jake blinked as confusion washed over him. Dustin? The guy from high school who always seemed to struggle. The same guy who had fallen on hard times in the last few years. The news felt like a dart. Are you sure? She nodded, placing the documents on the table between them. I've confirmed that his name is on the ticket. And he hasn't claimed the winnings yet. Why not? The question slipped out before he could stop it. Was he hiding? Or was it fear? Lucy shrugged, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. I don't know, Jake. Maybe he's scared. Or maybe he's worried about what the money would bring. There's always a risk, especially in our town. People get greedy. People change. Jake's mind raced, thoughts colliding with one another. Could this lottery win be part of what Maplewood needed? If they could rally Dustin, remind him of the good that could come from this. We should talk to him, Jake said, a newfound determination simmering inside. Wait, Lucy cautioned, her hands held up. This needs to be approached differently. If it becomes public before he's ready, it could change things in ways we can't predict. We must tread carefully. But he's our friend, Jake argued, a fire igniting in his chest. He could help us change everything. Maybe even invest in our ideas. Lucy's gaze softened, sensing the hope blooming in Jake's heart. I get that. But we can't pressure him. He needs to make his own choices. If we approach him the right way, he might feel safe enough to share his plans soon. The weight of their conversation settled between them. Would Dustin be willing to help? Would he even want to? Jake glanced out the window, noting how the last hues of twilight dimmed in the horizon like fading dreams. We can start by just reaching out, Jake suggested hesitantly. Maybe invite him to the next meeting. No pressure, just, come and see what we're doing. Lucy's eyes lit up. That's a good idea. But we also have to have a backup plan in case he's resistant. Together, right? Jake smiled, the warmth of their collaboration sparking a newfound energy. We'll figure it out. Just like we talked about. As they began to plan their approach, the sense of camaraderie folded around them like a warm blanket. Drawn together by the challenge, hope simmered anew. But as Jake retraced the paths swirling in his mind, another thought gnawed at him. In reaching out to Dustin, was he risking exposing both his friend's vulnerabilities and his own past failures? What if things didn't go as planned? Jake shook the doubts away as Lucy gathered her things. The urgency of the moment felt electric, every second stretching ahead as if time itself held its breath. Let us do this, Jake affirmed. But deep inside, he wrestled with a growing worry. If they secured Dustin's support and it all fell apart, could he bear the implications of failure once more? As they prepared to leave, Lucy turned, her expression resolute. We'll need all the strength we can muster for this. Believe in the community, and it will believe in us. Jake nodded, but uncertainty lingered. What if this new step didn't just open doors but closed them instead? He had so many questions, and as they stepped out into the darkening night, another knock echoed in his mind. Could this truly lead to the unity they all craved? Before they could reach the parking lot, Jake heard familiar laughter in the distance. A group of kids played outside, their joy a sharp contrast to the seriousness of their plans. Suddenly, he stood frozen, a thought striking him like a bolt of lightning. Wait, if they're together, maybe someone else will join us too. Maybe someone we didn't expect. The stirring of countless possibilities raced through his mind. Would this journey involve more than he could comprehend? And who else might share Dustin's story? Jake stood there, his heart beating louder than the laughter drifting through the air. The idea that more people could get involved, friends, neighbors, ignited a spark in him. He turned to Lucy, his eyes wide with excitement. What if we invited others? Imagine the impact. Lucy raised an eyebrow, but he could see her curiosity peaking. Like who? Everyone. The folks from the bakery, the community center, even some old classmates. They all have dreams. We need their voices too. Jake's enthusiasm spilled over, pushing him to believe it was possible to create something bigger than just a conversation. You really think they'll want to come together for this? She asked, skepticism mingling with fascination. Why not? He countered, feeling each pulse of hope shaking off their earlier worries. If we present it right, maybe it'll become a spark for everyone. It's not just about Dustin winning the lottery. It's about uniting. Finding strength in numbers. Lucy looked around, weighing his proposal. Okay. But we have to be smart about this. If we push too hard, it might backfire. Jake nodded, knowing she was right. Ideas had a way of feeling wonderful until reality stomped on them. Let us start small. We can reach out to a few key players first, get them on board. If they like what we're doing, they'll spread the word. With newfound purpose, they exchanged numbers with plans to draft an invitation. Hoping to keep it simple yet inspiring was crucial. They envisioned a relaxed meeting, maybe in the cafe downtown where the rich aromas of coffee could dissolve doubt and generate excitement. But a nagging thought lingered in the back of Jake's mind. Would Dustin be on board? If he was hesitant, would others still rally behind the cause? What if they created expectations and it all crumbled before his eyes? The uncertainty crackled in the air as they walked to their cars, but the laughter from the kids still lifted Jake's spirits. It echoed with the innocence of dreams, much like the ones he and his friends used to share. Do you think we should talk to the kids too? He blurted, thinking it through. They could inspire us with their ideas. Children are filled with dreams. Lucy chuckled, shaking her head. They may just want to suggest a trampoline park or something silly. Exactly. Jake replied. But remember how good it felt to dream like that. To throw all caution to the wind and just think big. Sometimes those silly dreams lead to something incredible, Lucy admitted, her voice tinged with nostalgia. Jake felt a longing stir within him. The community, with its familiar faces and shared history, held a warmth that seemed to slip away with time. He wanted to recapture that, the sense of belonging, of pushing for something that truly mattered. As they began brainstorming ideas, a nagging question clawed at him. How could he help someone like Dustin not only face the challenge ahead but actually embrace it? Let us clarify our intentions, Lucy said, a note of seriousness taking over. This has to be about lifting each other up, not putting pressure on him. It's about trust. Trust, right? Jake swallowed hard, acknowledging the truth in her words. It would take more than words, they needed to create a space where everyone felt supported, safe to share their dreams. As they stood under the dim glow of the streetlights, the air buzzing with hope, Jake glanced at Lucy, a spark lighting in his gaze. We'll do this together, we. Together, she affirmed. With that, they parted ways, determination settling in. But as he climbed into his car, excitement contorting with worry, another thought slipped in. What awaited them if they only opened their doors? There was so much at stake. Would this spark grow into a flame or fizzle in the wind? And would they really be able to rally the community, or would they be met with hesitation and fear? Jake turned the key in the ignition, rolling his shoulders back. The adventure ahead seemed daunting and thrilling all at once. Deep down, he believed something special was afoot. This wasn't just about money, it was about possibilities. He drove home with the weight of that thought lingering in the air, a question lingering at the edge of his mind: who else would take that leap of faith? And would Dustin be among them, ready to transform their dreams into reality? Jake arrived home with a whirlwind of thoughts swirling in his mind. As he parked, he glanced up at the small, familiar house he had known for years. Dan, his neighbor, was in the front yard, fiddling with his garden. The evening light caught the dust in the air, creating a soft glow around him. "Hey there, Jake." Dan called out, his voice cheerful. "Hey, Dan." Jake replied, forcing a smile as he stepped out of his car. The weight of his ideas felt heavy on his shoulders, but he couldn't let that show. "What's growing today?" "Just the usual stuff. Peppers and tomatoes," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "You know, the usual fight against bugs. How about you? You look like you've got a lot on your mind." Jake hesitated, then decided to give in to the friendly chat. "Just trying to figure out how to get the community together for a little project." "A project?" Dan perked up, his interest piqued. "Something big?" "Count me in." Suddenly, a spark ignited in Jake. "Well, it's kinda big. We're planning to gather ideas to help support Dustin. You know, really lift him up." Dan frowned slightly, sensing the weight of the subject. "Ah, that sounds important. I wish I could help him more." "Exactly. That's why we want to involve everyone. Imagine what we could do if we all pitched in, not just with ideas but with our time, too." Dan chuckled softly, scratching his beard. "Well, you know I'm always one to help. Just give me a shout when you have a plan." As they chatted, Jake started to feel the glimmer of hope take hold. If he could open a conversation with just a few of his neighbors, maybe others would see the value too. "Maybe you could talk to the folks at the community center, too," Dan suggested. "They could put up flyers or something. I'd be happy to help distribute them." That was a light bulb moment for Jake. "Yes. That's exactly what we need." His heart raced at the prospect of gathering everyone's voices, their dreams, and building momentum. "Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it." After saying goodnight, Jake re-entered his house, a new energy coursing through him. He grabbed a notebook and began jotting down names and ideas, imagining how they could extend invitations to everyone. His heart kept pounding with possibility. Later that night, Jake lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind buzzed with plans and concerns. Would people actually show up? Could they create a space where everyone felt comfortable to share? The idea of inviting kids also circled back in his mind. What if they found a way to engage the youth? They'd see their dreams reflected in the enthusiasm around them. Weird ideas could lead to something real. Just as he drifted toward sleep, a startling thought jolted him back. What if Dustin didn't want their help? What if he saw it as charity or pity? Jake's heart sank at the idea of their efforts being misinterpreted. But then he recalled the laughter from earlier, children chasing each other as they grappled with their own dreams. Maybe that was the key, the joy of collaboration, the freedom of brainstorming without confines. As dawn approached, Jake resolved that whatever happened, they would rally for Dustin with open hearts. They needed to embrace trust above all else. It was a leap worth taking. They could do this, together they would face the fears, the doubts, and the uncertainties. As the sun peeked over the horizon, casting warm light into his room, Jake could almost feel that familiar electricity in the air. He smiled, ready to face the day. The question echoed in his mind, fizzling with potential: who else would answer the call to help Dustin? And would those whispers of warmth turn into a powerful chorus? The next morning, Jake awoke with the sun illuminating his room in golden hues. He felt restless energy building inside him. Today was the day to reach out, to sow the seeds of action that he had envisioned last night. He quickly dressed and headed for his kitchen, the scent of coffee brewing urging him forward. Each sip was like a tickle of motivation, a reminder that he had a mission. With his notebook in hand, Jake made a list of neighbors he wanted to contact. He felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension as he jotted down names. It was time to not just hope for support, he needed to ask for it. After the last sip of coffee, he grabbed his keys and stepped outside. The neighborhood embraced him in a familiar comfort, yet today felt different. The air was warm and alive, buzzing with anticipation. Jake walked down the street, planning to knock on doors, share his vision, and listen to his neighbors' thoughts. It was a community effort that he couldn't do alone. The first stop was Mrs. Thompson's house. The elderly woman had a welcoming smile and an inherent kindness that filled every corner of her home. As Jake explained their plan to help Dustin, her eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "That's a wonderful idea, Jake. We must support our own. I'll bring the cookies for our first meeting," she declared, her joy infectious. Encouraged, Jake moved along to the next house. The Garcia family, always busy but inviting, welcomed him in. They listened eagerly, nodding along as he spoke. By the end of the conversation, they pledged their commitment to not just attend the meeting but also to volunteer their time. "Let us bring our kids too. They should be a part of this," Mr. Garcia suggested, and Jake felt a surge of happiness. Their inclination to include the youth renewed his hope. As Jake continued his rounds, he could feel that spark inside him growing brighter. It was transforming into a flame fueled by shared aspirations. Neighbors began to open up, each with their ideas about how to make Dustin feel supported and included. Some wanted to organize sports events, others spoke of art projects. Days turned into nights filled with planning and discussions as Jake met more people in the community. Flyers began to go up around town thanks to Dan's help at the community center. Children helped distribute them with eager hands and bright smiles. The whole town seemed to be joining in, like a swell of excitement. But as enthusiasm grew, shadows of doubt lingered in Jake's mind. Would they pull this together? What if Dustin couldn't see the good intentions behind their efforts? What if he felt overwhelmed or trapped by this tide of support? Those worries nudged at him, but he felt the power of community slowly push back against those fears. Just as Jake thought things were turning a corner, he heard a rumor on the street gossip that made his heart sink. Some residents believed that Dustin didn't want any help at all, that he preferred facing his struggles alone. Jake's stomach churned at the thought. The last thing he wanted was to misinterpret Dustin's feelings or push him away. Determination mixed with anxiety as he realized they would need to have a conversation with Dustin before anything moved forward. It had to be done carefully, face to face. Jake's heart raced at the thought of confronting that uncertainty. Tomorrow would be a big day. Would they finally reach out to Dustin? Would he be open to their help or would it create a sky of tension that would overshadow their hard work? Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of anticipation pressing down, knowing this moment could change everything. Was their friendship strong enough to withstand this challenge? The question lingered in the air like a shadow, one that Jake would have to face. Jake woke up feeling the pressure of the day ahead. He wasn't sure how he'd approach Dustin. His worries seemed to swirl like dark clouds. As he got dressed, every button he fastened felt heavy. The stakes had never been higher, and the weight of it pressed down on him. Breakfast was a quick affair as he fumbled through toast and coffee. He could barely taste the food, his thoughts racing. He replayed the plan in his head, gather everyone, approach Dustin, and see where they stood. Simple, yet so complicated. By the time he left his house, the sun hung lazily in the sky, casting long shadows across the street. Jake's heart raced. A mix of nerves and anticipation coursed through his veins. Would Dustin even want to talk? Or would he turn them away? The walk to Dustin's place felt longer than usual. Each step echoed uncertainty. Jake's mind buzzed with possibilities. What if Dustin felt cornered? What if he rejected their kindness outright? As he neared Dustin's house, the sturdy structure loomed ahead, both inviting and intimidating. Jake paused at the front gate, taking a deep breath. He could see the garden was slightly overgrown, evidence of his friend's struggle. With a shaky hand, he knocked on the door, the sound echoing in the quiet neighborhood. A few moments passed before he heard the shuffling from inside. The door creaked open, revealing a weary but familiar face. Dustin's eyes, however, carried a cloud of discomfort. Jake felt his heart sink. "Hey, man," Jake said, forcing a smile. "Got a minute?" Dustin hesitated, his gaze flickering to the ground. Sure. What's up?" Jake stepped into the threshold, the dim light of the hallway encasing them. He could feel the weight of the conversation settling around them. "We've all been worried about you," he started, looking Dustin in the eye. "We want to help." Dustin shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. "I appreciate it, Jake. But I'm fine, really." "No, you're not," Jake replied, his voice firmly gentle. "We care about you. We've been discussing ways to support you. But I need to know if you're okay with us moving forward." Dustin's expression shifted, pain flashing across his face. I don't want to burden anyone. I've got to sort things out for myself." "Dustin, it's not a burden. This community wants to be here for you," Jake urged, feeling the weight of every word. "You don't have to do this alone anymore. We just want a chance to help. Will you let us?" Silence hung thick between them. Jake could see the battle within Dustin. He looked away, clenching his jaw. Finally, with a deep breath, he whispered, "I don't know how to ask for help. I've always handled things on my own." Jake took a step closer, sensing his vulnerability. "Admitting you need help takes strength too, you know. Your friends aren't going anywhere. Just let us in." Dustin's facade cracked slightly. "It's just I'm scared. I don't want to drag you all down with me." Jake felt his chest tighten. "You won't drag us down. Dustin, we're a team. Please don't shut us out. Allow yourself to lean on us. We can figure this out together." For a heartbeat, Jake hoped he had broken through the barriers that had been constructed over time. Dustin's eyes flickered with uncertainty and raw emotion. "Okay," he finally said, voice shaky. Maybe I'll give it a try." That admission breathed new life into Jake's heart. As relief washed over him, he knew this was just the beginning. The hard part was overcoming the doubt that resided within Dustin, a doubt that could take time to erase. Just as they began to brainstorm ideas together, a loud crash rang from the kitchen, followed by a muffled curse from another room. Jake exchanged a worried glance with Dustin. "What was that?" Jake asked, shifting his focus. "I guess something fell," Dustin replied, worry knitting his brows. They moved toward the noise, an unexpected twist revealing itself. What else awaited them within these walls of struggle and support? Jake's stomach knotted again. Unexpected challenges always seemed to come knocking. Would they face it together, as he hoped? Jake and Dustin exchanged a knowing glance before moving towards the kitchen. The smell of something burnt lingered in the air, mingling with the chaos that seemed to be unfolding just out of sight. As they stepped inside, Jake's heart raced. The scene that greeted them made him feel as though they had wandered into a cartoon. The table was overturned, a pot of something blackened lay splattered on the floor, and Dustin's dog, Max, was staring, ears perked with a look of sheer innocence that was both hilarious and concerning. "What the hell happened?" Jake asked, trying to suppress a chuckle. Dustin sighed, a mix of embarrassment and frustration washing over him. "I tried to make lunch while we talked. Clearly, that didn't go well. Looks like you set off a small explosion instead," Jake teased lightly, hoping to ease the tension. But as Dustin crouched down to clean up the mess, Jake noticed the weariness return to his friend's eyes. "Maybe I should stick to takeout for a while," Dustin replied, his voice flat. "No way, man. Cooking is part of the process," Jake said, crouching beside him. "It's all about trial and error. Just like life." Dustin raised an eyebrow. "Easy for you to say. You're not the one who just made a disaster of a kitchen." Yeah, but look at it this way, at least we're tackling the mess together. It's way more fun than doing it alone, Jake said, elbowing Dustin playfully. Dustin cracked a small smile, a glimpse of gratitude shining through the heaviness that still clouded his expression as he pushed the remnants of the pot aside. They spent the next few minutes laughing as they cleaned up the chaos together. It wasn't just a kitchen mess, it felt like they were taking care of something bigger. Dustin's pain and isolation were beginning to bleed away, little by little. With the kitchen finally tidied up, Jake suggested, "Let's grab something to eat. You pick, I'll pay." "I don't want to be a bother," Dustin said immediately, his old instincts kicking in. Jake felt exasperation bubble up. "You're not a bother. You're my best friend, remember? Friends do this kind of stuff for each other. Just let me treat you, okay?" Dustin hesitated, his eyes shifting again as if he was wrestling with the approval that Jake was offering. "Fine, Chinese it is. But just this once. Deal?" Jake beamed, feeling a rush of excitement. As they sat down to order, an unfamiliar silence filled the room. The natural laughter from earlier faded, replaced by an underlying tension. Jake could sense that Dustin had more on his mind. "What is going on?" he finally asked, dropping all pretense. Dustin swallowed hard. "I just don't want to keep falling apart, you know. I thought reaching out would fix everything. But it feels more complicated." Jake's heart dropped a little. "It will take time. We'll face it together, remember? Just because you're trying doesn't mean you've done it all. It's a journey." "Yeah, but what if I mess it all up?" Dustin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jake leaned in closer, earnestness in his eyes. "We all mess up. It's part of being human. But you've got to trust that we're here to help. You don't have to have it all figured out right away." Dustin nodded, but his expression remained clouded. "It's just hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel." Jake reached across the table and placed a hand on Dustin's. "That's okay. Sometimes you just need someone to walk beside you in the dark until you find it again." Dustin's gaze softened a fraction, but the worry still clung to him like a shadow. Jake would have given anything to banish that shadow for good. Just as Dustin opened his mouth to respond, the phone rang, piercing through the thick air. It startled both of them, and Jake felt his heart skip at the unexpected sound. The moment felt fragile, a moment that held both promise and fear. "Just a second," Dustin said, glancing at the caller ID. His face paled slightly. It's my dad." Jake's breath caught in his throat. Would this call change everything? Would it pull them back into chaos just as they were starting to break free? "Are you going to answer it?" Jake asked, concern etching his words. Dustin hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." And just like that, the noise from the outside world began to contrast sharply with the tension in the room. Would Dustin choose to face the one thing that had held him captive for far too long? Dustin took a deep breath, his other hand clenching nervously on the table. The phone continued to ring, each chime echoing like an accusation in the charged silence. Jake could see the battle unfold in his friend's eyes, a mixture of fear, love, and something else he couldn't quite grasp. "Hey," Jake said softly, trying to break through the whirlwind of emotions that seemed to cloud Dustin's judgment. "It's okay. You don't have to answer it if you're not ready." But Dustin's gaze remained fixed on the screen. I should pick up," he muttered, though his voice faltered. "What if he wants to know how I'm doing?" "What if Dustin?" Jake interrupted gently, leaning closer. "You get to decide what you want to share. You're not obligated to be strong for him. You're allowed to be how you are, right now." Dustin's hand trembled as he considered Jake's words. "I just don't know if I can handle what he might say, the expectations." His voice almost cracked, and Jake's heart ached for him. The phone stopped ringing abruptly, plunging the room into a tense stillness. Without another word, Dustin dropped his gaze to the table, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world sat atop them. That's it. He didn't leave a message, Dustin said finally, though the disappointment in his voice was palpable. Maybe this is just a sign that I need to cut ties to stop hoping things will change. That's one way to look at it, Jake replied, feeling a pang of frustration bubbling just underneath the surface. Or you could choose to handle it differently. This could be a chance to carve out a new relationship with him, one that acknowledges you for who you are now. Dustin scoffed lightly, then rubbed the back of his neck. Do you really think he'd want that? I mean, what if he doesn't even care? Jake paused, studying his friend closely. What if he does care, but he just doesn't know how to show it? What if you could give him a chance? Jake's words hung in the air like a delicate thread between hope and fear. The flicker in Dustin's eyes caught Jake's attention, a moment of uncertain possibility. But then, the doorbell rang, startling them both. It was like a burst of sudden light shattering through the dense cloud of tension. That must be the food, Jake exclaimed, hopeful for a distraction. He jumped up, ready to welcome the welcome interruption. As Jake moved to the door, he turned back. You know, maybe it's not just about fear. It's about growth too. What if opening that door leads you to understanding something new about your dad? Dustin nodded slowly, but his expression remained vulnerable. Yeah, I guess, but what if I let you down? Jake opened the door to reveal a delivery driver balancing a mountain of boxes. Just a minute. He called back, placing the food on the table. He returned to find Dustin still wrestling with himself. You want to let me down, not now or ever. Dustin looked up, the shadows of doubt slowly lifting. You really believe that? Absolutely, Jake grinned, pushing a steaming box towards Dustin. You're not that easy to lose. They settled back down together, and for a moment, just like that, they were surrounded by the comforting scent of Chinese food sizzling in its containers. It felt like a mini celebration, small, yet significant. Dustin took a deep breath, the tension in his body lightening just a fraction as he dug into the food. But there was still something unsaid lingering between them. As they ate, Dustin spoke hesitantly, maybe I could text him instead. Just to see how he responds. No pressure. See? That's the spirit. Jake encouraged, his voice ripe with excitement. Dustin's fingers darted to his phone. Just as he was about to type, the screen lit up with a notification. A message had come through. Before he could read it aloud, a sense of hesitation washed over him. What if it's something I don't want to hear? Jake shrugged, eyes sparkling with mischief. Or it could be the breakthrough you've been looking for. Go on, read it. Dustin swallowed hard, staring at the screen. His heart raced as he tapped the notification. What would it say? Would it crack the door open just enough to let in that glimmer of light he so desperately craved? And just like that, the air thickened with anticipation. Would this be the moment everything changed? What awaited him on the other side of that screen? Dustin's hand trembled slightly as he pulled his phone closer to his face. He read the message, his brow furrowing in concentration. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. Let me know when you can talk. Silence enveloped the room like a soft blanket, each tick of the clock making the moment feel more profound. Jake leaned forward, curiosity dancing in his eyes. What does it say? Dustin's heart raced. He wants to talk, he replied, stunned. Then talk to him. Jake urged, the excitement in his voice bubbling over. This could be the start of something new. Dustin hesitated. What if it goes wrong? What if he doesn't understand? Hey, it's a possibility, Jake said, his tone encouraging. But isn't living with fear of the unknown worse than trying? You've got this, man. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Dustin's fingers danced over the screen as he began typing. It felt like stepping onto a tightrope strung between fear and hope. I'll let him know I'm free to talk tomorrow. Once sent, a wave of relief washed over him, but it quickly intertwined with anxiety. Now I just have to figure out what to say. Start with the truth, Jake smiled. Let him know how you're feeling. You're brave enough for that. I guess you're right, Dustin admitted, looking less burdened with each word. The earlier chaos in his kitchen felt like ages ago. Now, surrounded by friendship and understanding, a flicker of optimism sparked within him. They finished lunch, light banter easing the air around them. Dustin's shoulders relaxed, and though uncertainty still loomed, he felt lighter. Maybe reaching out was the first step toward reclaiming the friendships he had let fade. Days flew by, and that night, they met with the community for the first time in what felt like years. The local cafe buzzed with excitement. The room was filled with familiar faces, all echoing support and hope. As people began sharing ideas, creativity flowed like a river. Jake felt a surge of pride as voices that had previously been quiet chimed in with dreams of revitalizing Maplewood. Imagine a space where kids can play, where families can gather, someone suggested. A garden that everyone can contribute to. Dustin looked around, a warmth blossoming in his chest. He was not just participating, he was part of something larger, a community rallying for one another. For the first time in a long time, he felt acceptance. After sharing his own thoughts and plans, he noticed he wasn't just talking. He was building connections. The cheer in the room wrapped around him like a reassuring hug. Each smile, nod, and burst of laughter became a reminder that they stood together, side by side. As the meeting drew to an end, Jake stepped forward. Our friend here, Dustin, has been brave enough to reach out. I think we all should follow his example. Applause erupted, lifting Dustin in a wave of support that made him feel invincible. He turned to Jake, his gratitude flowing like a river. You pushed me to do this, Dustin said, voice cracking with emotion. Thank you for believing in me. Always, Jake replied, clapping him on the back. With newfound purpose, Dustin approached the podium, gathering his courage. Can I just say, it feels good to be back. We've been through a lot, and I've been distant for far too long. I want to change that. The crowd cheered, bolstering his spirit. We're in this together, right? Let us build something we can be proud of. Dustin felt the palpable energy. The room vibrated with enthusiasm, and as ideas were exchanged, it became clear, they weren't just rebuilding a community, they were rallying around each other, igniting hope in a way that felt almost revolutionary. Days turned into weeks, and momentum surged. Friends and neighbors worked together, real changes were happening. Green sprouts began to peek out of the community garden, laughter rang out in newly refurbished parks. Dustin found joy in simply being part of the heart of Maplewood again, relishing the connections he had almost let slip away. The phone call with his father came as scheduled, and Dustin felt a mixture of trepidation and resolve. He picked up the call, each ring feeling heavier than the last. He had a choice now, one that went beyond obligation, a choice to embrace vulnerability instead of fear. As they spoke, Dustin found his voice. I've changed, Dad. I've learned to open up. It feels good to let others in. And I want to start over with you too. In that moment, amidst the community spirit blossoming around him, Dustin leaned into the hard conversations and embraced the thrill of those uncertainties. Life was still a constant juggling act of struggles and triumphs, but he no longer faced it alone. Each challenge brought him closer to understanding the beauty of vulnerability, the power of friendship, and the strength they all held when gathered together, voices uplifted as one. As for Jake, he beamed, watching his friend rise anew, proud of the heart that pulsed within their corner of the world, an infallible testament that even through chaos, they found a way to build something worth fighting for. This was only the beginning. A tapestry woven together with empathy and resilience, a story that reflected the pulse of a community moving forward united. And so, the heartbeat of Maplewood throbbed steadily, echoing with the promise of new beginnings. Now, don't forget, friends. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button now, it really helps the algorithm find fellow dreamers like you. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this incredible transformation. Your voices matter. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this journey of hope and connection. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second.